Hello folks, Scott with Dallas Paint Correction and Auto Detailing in Dallas, Texas. It's Easter Sunday 2017. How you guys doing? I woke up this morning and I said to myself, you know what, it's Easter, Jesus has risen. That's what they say, right? Bunny rabbits are laying eggs all over the place, the kids are picking them up. And I said I'm going to make a video about headlight restoration. Let there be light, right? For Easter. I want to talk about, this is not going to be, if some of you guys go, oh my God, I hope this guy doesn't have a long video. Well, guess what? It's going to be a long video. There's a lot to know. This video is going to be pretty extensive. It's going to be beyond the basics. There's a lot of things that you guys need to know, especially you, perhaps not professional detailers. Maybe you know all this stuff already, but if you're a car enthusiast and you're thinking about maybe getting into auto detailing, this is why I want to make this video. I want to bring you guys to another level. There's a lot of companies out there. There's a lot of people making videos out there. I don't want to pick on anybody. There's Auto Geek. There's Chemical Guys. I appreciate the fact that they have videos online or on YouTube. That's beautiful. That's wonderful. They're also trying to sell their products. That's just the way it works. Why do I bring up their names? Well, if you're buying kits at Walmart, buying kits at your favorite parts store, a lot of the kits will come with sandpaper. It will come with some type of protectant or sealant to put on the lens afterwards. The first thing I want to talk about is, where do you want to start? How aggressive do you need to be? What type of sandpaper do you need to be? Or what type of sandpaper do you need? The sandpaper that's sold in the kits, sometimes they start at 1,000 grit or 1,500 grit. Unfortunately, folks, that's not really going to give you perfection. That's not 1,500 grit is barely going to remove the clear coat that's on this polycarbonate lens and has begun to break down. You'll get it to look shiny, you'll get it to look clear, but give it a couple of months, because the 1,500 grit or even sometimes 1,000 grit will not completely remove all that clear coat that has begun to break down on the lens. It may look like it's gone to you, and that's great, that's wonderful. You think you've gotten where you need to be, but there's still some remnants, some residue of the clear coat that has failed that's still on that lens. And give it a couple of months, that fading, that yellow is going to start to come back on you pretty aggressively. So this particular lens right here, it's a 2000 Chevy pickup truck, I think a 1500 Silverado pickup truck. The lenses on the top aren't that bad. The lenses on the bottom are far worse. But this stuff here, the clear coat has not begun to degrade evenly across the headlight. Over here we've got some clear coat that's still intact. Then over here, as we go towards the left side of the lens, the clear coat begins to break down quite a bit. So when I look at this, I already know right off the bat, typically for me when I'm doing headlight restorations, I'm starting off about 400 or 600 grit. Some of you might be going, wow, that's pretty aggressive. Well, I've just been doing it too long. I know how the polycarbonate lens responds to certain types of sandpaper, certain type of levels of grit. And again, if you're just using 1,500, I watch Chemical Guys videos. I think they're cool, they're wonderful. But I think, what do they got, like this little sanding block or foam block, and they have like 1,500 grit sandpaper, 2,000 grit or 3,000. If you want to do this right, you got to go far. You got to go much further than 1,500 grit. You want true perfection. You want true shine, true gloss, true clarity. You've got to go much deeper than that. So first off, if you notice, I have it all taped off around the lens. Tape is your friend in this moment. More tape, the better. If you use half a roll, I'm not going to laugh at you. Why do I say that? When we're wet sanding this lens, I could be working on a car that costs $300,000. I could be trying to bring back or restore a headlight lens that costs $1,500 and it's not available aftermarket, only OEM. The last thing I want to do when I'm sanding this lens is to slide off the lens and hit anything on the outside of the lens around the car. I can't tell you how many times I've come to work on somebody's headlights that my customer has used somebody else. They call me in a couple months later and say, Scott, it's begun to fade again. I don't know what happened. Can you come look at my car? I will see sanding marks all around the lens from the previous guy, woman, whatever. I'm not judging anybody, but I just want you guys to understand, more tape the better. Get aggressive with it. Make sure if you accidentally slip off this lens, you don't want to scratch anything. This headlight here, what I've done, I've already taped it, so I don't have to put you through all that boring crap, right? Like Scott doesn't talk enough. But here's the deal. I got it all taped up. I've also cleaned the lens. You know what I used? I didn't use car soap or anything like that. I used an all-purpose cleaner or a super degreaser and wiped off the lens. Now it's clean as far as any grease and grime. I want to start off by using the clay bar. Some of you might be going, wow, why are you going to use a clay bar? You're just going to sand it anyway. If there's any bonded contaminants on there, you're going to get them off anyway, so what's the big deal? Well, I don't want my sandpaper picking up any of those bonded contaminants, any little pieces of metal that might be stuck to this lens. I only want to deal with the polycarbonate lens itself, and I only want to be able to pull off the clear coat. I don't want to be fighting anything else. I don't want that bonded contaminants to stick to my sandpaper and slow my process down. It's not a fast process. In fact, if you want amazing results, you got to slow down and do it right. So the first thing I'm going to do is just take some water here with some soap inside of it, and I'm just going to spray the lens. You guys probably know how to clay, but there's not a lot of people that will clay a lens first. So I just wanted to show you my process to it. I'm going to go in here and clean up this lens, pull off any bonded contaminants off the lens. Again, this video is not going to be short. I might have to break it into 2 pieces so you guys can digest it slowly. But really, this video is about the car enthusiast. It's about the guy or the woman who's sitting on the fence saying, boy, I want to get into auto detailing. I'm just not sure. I feel like I have a little bit of doubt inside me. I'm just trying to create some videos to help you guys get off that fence, get out there and enjoy your passion, and give you a better understanding how this works so you get amazing results right off the bat. I want to take your learning curve and try to shorten it out as much as I can. Yes, there's only so much I can do in a video. There's only so much I can translate through a video and show you guys. But this really isn't all that difficult. What's difficult is doing it right, being patient. That's the hard part, and that's what I see all the time. When I come out to look at somebody's headlights that have been done by somebody else, again, I'm not judging anybody. It is what it is. Some people have their own process to doing this. I'll come out and I'll just see, in my opinion, I hate to use the word hack or crappy work, but sometimes they're just, there's crappy work out there. There's guys that will do headlight restoration for $30, $40. Guess what? In life, you get what you pay for, and if you're spending $30, $40 to have somebody come in and do your headlights and they're only sitting in your driveway for 15, 20 minutes, most likely all they're doing is wet sanding it at 1500 or 2000 grit and then wiping off that residue and taking a polisher and just polishing up the lens. That's not enough. We got to be far more aggressive than that. Okay, so now I've got the headlight, the lens is clean. All the bonded contaminants are off the lens. If I feel the lens, it's silky smooth. But now I have to wet sand it. I'm going to start off with 800 grit. Here's another tip. 800 grit sandpaper. This happens to be made by G2. I just pick it up at a local parts store. If you're using Meguiar's Unigrit, sandpaper, it's fine, it's great. I don't buy it because there's some issues with it. But one of the reasons why I wanted to bring up Meguiar's, I'm going to be using a water and soap solution. I want a little bit more lubrication on the lens and on my sanding paper. If you're using Meguiar's Unigrit, only use water. Do not use soap in it. Meguiar's doesn't really talk about this all that much, but I just wanted to pass it on to you. Unigrit already has some lubrication designed and built into the sandpaper, so you don't need to put any soap on it, and soap in your solution that you're using to wet sand with. If you do, you can actually start to fight yourself through the process. The Unigrit doesn't want any soap mixed in the water, so that's a little tip there about Meguiar's. So basically, if you see my wet sanding video on how to wet sand clear coat, I'm going to take my sponge and I'm going to get this wet a little bit with my soapy water, and then I'm going to take my sandpaper and I'm going to get it wet on the outside as well. I'll wet the back side too, and then I'm going to wrap the sandpaper around my sponge. Why do I do this? It makes it easier for me. It's a little bit more comfortable in my hand when I'm going across this, when I'm going across the lens. It also distributes the pressure of my hand evenly across the sponge. Just a little trick there. So basically I have that wet. I'm going to get a little bit more wet here. You don't need a lot. I see guys soaking these panels to the point where the front of the bumper is soaking wet. You don't need a lot. But here I go with 800 grit. I'm going to go in here and start sanding. How much pressure am I applying? Quite a bit. This isn't light pressure. I want to engage that clear coat. I want to pull off some of that dead plastic polycarbonate lens, if you will. So I'm using quite a bit of pressure here to be able to engage that clear coat. I want to pull it off. This is 800 grit. I could go 600 grit, but I just know from experience that 800 grit's going to get me where I need to go with this lens, and I'm going to be able to completely pull off that clear coat. I'm going to have even scratch pattern across the lens. And this part here, your first initial cut, is probably the most important. You want to get every bit of this lens, and you want to get all that clear coat off. This is where true clarity shine is going to happen. Yes, I'm going to slowly back out. I'm starting with 800 grit. I'm probably going to go to 1500 grit and then 2000 grit. But your first initial pass is where you want to spend most of your time. You really want to make sure that you have an even scratch pattern across the lens. You want to make sure every bit of that clear coat is coming off. So take your time here. This is probably going to be the longest process when it comes to wet sanding. This lens is a little bit of a pain in the butt. It's got these little tits on the plastic piece during manufacturing. You got to work around them. Some Chevys have them. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt. But just keep coming in here. And what you're going to notice, you're going to start getting some white slurry. That's part of the old pieces of plastic coming up, or pieces of the polycarbonate. You're going to get some on your sanding paper. Go in here and kind of flood the area again. Rinse off that slurry. Go ahead and rinse it off your wet sand paper as well. Go back in here and just keep going. Do you guys know why we have polycarbonate lenses and no longer glass lenses on cars? Well, there's a couple of different reasons for it. Polycarbonate is cheaper to create. It's less expensive to manufacture. Unfortunately, that does not mean that it's cheaper for us to buy, right? That's usually the way it works in life. When a manufacturer figures out how to do it easier and they save money, they want to charge us more for it. The other deal with polycarbonate, they're lighter than glass. So that kind of helps as well. The other issue is back in the 80s, the National Transportation Safety Board, I don't know, they probably spent millions of freaking dollars to do this test or do this study. But if you were in a minor car accident or even a major car accident, they realized the amount of glass that was at an accident scene was actually hurting paramedics, some innocent bystanders at the accident. So they decided to come up with a better idea instead of using glass. So that's how they came up with polycarbonate. Now, the other thing that's very interesting about a polycarbonate lens versus glass. Polycarbonate, let me go in here and clean off my slurry. Polycarbonate, believe it or not, you would think that glass will allow light to transfer through it faster, be more effective, more efficient. But polycarbonate, it's a form of plastic, actually allows the light to transfer through the plastic faster. It's brighter than glass, so it makes driving at night a little bit safer. Why do I bring this up? If you're a professional detailer or you're thinking about getting into detailing, your customers may ask, why are the lenses plastic now and not glass? You want to know these things. You want to be confident. You want to tell your customer you understand not only how to wet sand it, not only how to bring back clarity, but you understand the design, why they were created. This makes you more powerful. This makes you have more wisdom. You'll stand out among the competition. The customer will realize they hired somebody who understands the whole process. Sometimes you guys tease me, God, that guy rambles too much. Hey, it's Easter, you know, so If Jesus is sitting next to God and they're watching me right now, they're probably going, wow, what a creation we made. That guy never shuts up, but we love him. But there's a reason why I don't shut up. It's because I want you guys to have all the facts. I want you to become efficient tools. Use your mouth effectively. Use your skills effectively. Your customers are going to love it. They're going to instantly realize you understand. You have passion, you have knowledge, you have wisdom. And guess what that translates to, people? They'll pay you more. People will pay you more if you understand and you communicate effectively and you help them understand why these things go bad, and you also know how to correct it. All right, so I'm going in there. Some of you are going, wow, he's spending a lot of time with 800 grit getting this off. I'm going to spend more time with it. Again, this video is not going to be short. Going to go in and kind of flood that panel, get off that used up plastic that I pulled off, rinse off the residue, and go back in here and do a little bit more. And again, the pressure I'm applying is medium to heavy pressure. The plastic lens, even with 800 grit, even if I was using 600 grit right now, or 400 grit, the polycarbonate lens can handle the pressure. It's not a big deal. But again, not to tease chemical guys or Auto Geek with their videos. They're great videos. They help you. They help you understand how it works. But you're going to need something far more aggressive than 1500 grit. And you want to completely get in here. This is where you win the battle. Your first pass is the most aggressive pass. It's the time you're going to spend. You're going to spend a lot of time here to create perfection. You want every bit of that lens to be completely scratched uniformly across it. You want that clear coat gone. And now that I've got the tape all along the side of the panel, I'm not worried about touching the customer's paint, scratching the paint. That's important. I can't tell you how embarrassing that would be. I've never had it happen to me, to be honest with you, but the last thing I want to do is scratch my customer's car. So take the time to tape up around the lens. All right, we're getting somewhere, right? Some of you guys are going, holy crap, Scott, get somewhere, please. It's Jesus' resurrection. He's even flipping out. Come on, get to the point. Thank God there's fast forward up in heaven. They can fast forward through my videos and get to the point. Okay, so we've got the 800 grit. I think I'm pretty close here to being confident that I removed all the clear coat off it. Now I want to check and test my scratch pattern. What do I mean by that? I'm going to dry this off, and I'm going to allow the water to evaporate and the soap to evaporate off the lens. And when it does that, it could scare you a little bit. It'll look really scratched up. It will start to look really cloudy. And what I'm looking for is uniform scratch pattern. I want it to be completely cloudy, evenly across the lens with my 800 grit sandpaper. I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but I notice over here it's still a little bit clear. It's not as foggy or hazy from my scratch pattern, so I have to come over here and hit some more, remove some more of that clear coat here. So that's why I do that. Let it dry up. You can even blow on it to evaporate all the water, but you want to have even scratch pattern all the way across. You want it to be scratched and evenly hazy and foggy all the way across the lens. So guess what? We got to do more of this. Holy crap, some of you are flipping out already. But this should be my last pass. I saw where I missed a little bit over here. Maybe I didn't apply enough pressure. I got to get in here and be a little bit more aggressive, pull off all that clear coat, make sure that my scratch pattern is even across the lens. You know, some guys will tell you work, you know, north, south, west, east only. Don't go in circles. Don't overthink it, guys. You just basically want an even scratch pattern across the lens. You want to make sure you're pulling off all that clear coat. You want all that dead plastic off the lens. You control the moment. You know, that's what I like about using my hand versus using a drill that has sanding discs to it. I've used them so many times, they're not really a big issue, but if you're a beginner, you want to be careful. If you're using a drill with a sanding disc on it, you could slip off the lens and hit the part of the car. I don't want to do that. I want to spend a little extra time. I can actually feel so much better through my hand using sandpaper. I can feel a little bit of resistance on the plastic. I can feel when I've cut through that clear coat. Now I'm just down to polycarbonate lens. It kind of almost like using a clay bar. You can feel a little bit of resistance. So I like doing it by hand. Does it take a little bit more time? God, yes. But my results are better. I'm controlling the moment. Okay, I think we got it there. I could feel it through my hand. I could see my scratch pattern. Just come in here and clean up after myself a little bit. Man, it's Easter here in Dallas, but it's a little humid. I think we're supposed to have some thunderstorms this afternoon. And I'm sweating up a storm just to make a video about headlights, but that's cool. I needed to sweat a little bit. Get some of the toxins I put in my body every day from auto detailing, being surrounded by fancy sealants, waxes, all that stuff gets in my skin. I'm breathing it, so it's time to sweat it out a little bit, right? So that's good. All right, so that's that. I'm gonna let it evaporate a little bit and see what my scratch pattern looks like. Maybe even blow on it. If you got a blower, a handheld blower, you guys have seen my little X-Power plastic blower. It works for that. Now what I see here, it's completely hazy, fogged up and scratched up evenly across the lens. All the scratch marks are uniformly and at the same level across the lens. I've completely removed the clear coat. Now it comes to the fast part. Nothing's ever fast with Scott, right? You're like, no way. This guy doesn't know what fast means. Now I'm going to go to 1500 grit. I want to slowly back out. I started with 800 grit. Let's say I started with 600 or 400. I might go from 600 to 1000 grit. Then from 1000 grit, I'll go to 2000 grit. Basically what I'm doing is I want to get a bulk of all that nasty clear coat that's failed. I want to take a little bit of the plastic off, and then I slowly want to come out. I want to refine my scratches, so when it's time to compound and polish it, I'll have perfection. So here we go with the 1500. This shouldn't take all that long at all. All I want to do is kind of back my way out of the 800 grit sandpaper that I used. Again, I'm using my sponge wrapped around the sandpaper. That helps a little bit with the pressure of your hand. If you're going to do this by hand, it's going to be a little bit better to have some cushion. That's why I like the sponge. For some of you who are just getting into detailing, some of you might be asking, hey Scott, what do you charge for headlight restoration? I'm going to get into that with you because there's so many different prices all over the board based on your customers' expectations. Do they plan on keeping the vehicle? Some people have me come in and do headlight restoration just because they want to pass state inspection, then they're going to get rid of their car. So if I know those things, I can kind of tweak the moment for them a little bit to help with their budget. But most of the time, I am not the cheapest